Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Is this working? Are you able to say in the chat at all? Okay. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for watching the premiere with me. I hope you enjoyed the film, and I want to also thank all those who supported the IndieGoGo campaign that made this possible, made the film possible, and also because we reached the first stretch goal, I said I would do this live Q&A. So thank you to them for making this possible. Let me introduce myself. I'm Kira. I wrote and animated the film and directed the film that we just watched, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. So you're welcome to type in the chat if you have any questions about how I made the film, what the process was like, or about the film itself. Yeah, just go ahead and let me know. Also on the list of things to do is to pick the winners of the giveaway that we ran. So yeah, I guess I'll start by talking about how I got the idea for this this story. Unlike some of my other projects, this one actually started with an idea that my sister had. She is also a writer, a very, very talented writer, and she has a tendency of abandoning projects on cliffhangers. And with this particular one, I had gotten invested, so I had to know what happened, right? And here we are a couple years later, and it's completely different. It was a fun experience. And then, Mother, I see your comments. Thank you for all of the support. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did have a lot of fun with the colors too. That's one of my my favorite parts of making a film is picking out the color scheme. I usually like to use pretty simple color palettes to make the process easier for myself, since it is just me doing all of the artwork, and I am a student. I have other responsibilities, so keeping to one or two colors in a color palette can save me a lot of time. But I usually choose 2 to 3 colors that sum up the mood, the vibe of the story that I'm going for, and I enjoy manipulating those colors, playing with the saturation and you know, the temperatures of those colors and such as they move through the story. So I had a lot of fun with this one, setting the tone and getting the environment right for the story. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it was enjoyable to watch those colors evolve in the story. Yeah, the purple sky was fun. Yeah. Yeah, so colors are one thing I think about. It's like the world outside. Yeah, I like to think that there is a hopeful world outside of the forest. It's not something that I know explicitly when I was writing that, but there is one. But you know, the optimist in me wants to believe that, you know, about this story and about, you know, the dark moments that we all experience in our lives. So, yeah, I guess that could be a theme. Uh, yeah. So after I wrote the script about a year ago, I finally settled on the story after a couple years of using it as a oh, so the birds, them as a sacrifice. Yeah, I think the birds kind of symbolize, like, they juxtapose the rooted trees, which are so tied to the location that they're in, but birds can fly. So I thought of using them as like counteracting the effects of the forest that, trapped the characters. Um, yeah, and I thought it looked cool and creepy, you know. So I wasn't thinking too deeply, but I think, the the English literature analyzer in me, if I really wanted to, could probably come up with something to uh, make that sound super deep and complex and thematic. Yeah, but I'm curious what y'all thought about that too. If you have ideas to talk about in the chat. Yeah. Uh, so I wrote the script, and the next thing I did, um, well, I to think, yeah. So I was about to start talking about how getting the voices for these characters happened, because especially at the time I was not really willing to consider doing the voice acting myself. I don't consider myself much of an actor. So I knew I needed voice actors, and I also knew I wanted to compensate any actors that I would be working with. So I needed a budget, and I am so glad that the IndieGoGo campaign that I launched with, uh, you know, I threw out into the world and hoped, and it worked. And I was able to run some auditions through Zoom, and was lucky enough to find Grace, Phi, and Annie, who did fantastic in the auditions. And then we worked out a time on Zoom where we could all meet and plan. Um, yeah, with the pandemic, I had originally hoped to make use of some of the services on the campus of the school that I go to that has a recording studio. But because of the pandemic, we couldn't do that. And also, some of the actors I was working with were remote, so they couldn't even be on campus to do that. So I had to consider equipment when choosing actors. I had at auditions, I was asking if they had something to record themselves with, and then we debated whether we would do synchronous recordings or have each actor record on their own. And um, the actors chose to do synchronous recordings because it was very helpful to them to have someone to bounce off of during the recordings. Um, so we had a fun time. We got on Zoom. Everybody recorded themselves and then sent me the files, and it worked out. I think they did great, but it was definitely, I think, a challenge to when everyone's recording in different contexts with different equipment, to get everybody to sound the same or like they're in the same place, because they're not. So I'm sure that was quite a challenge for the wonderful sound mixer that I had the privilege of working with. Indonesia did an amazing job, I think, and I'm very lucky to have worked with them. Yeah, so working remotely is something that I'm lucky to do as an animator. Most of the work I can do, I don't need to be on any kind of location. I can do it by myself, holed up in my room. But I'm still lucky to have had some wonderful people to help me with the things that I could not do myself. Um, and the hardest part of making the whole film. Uh, well, I know the part that took the longest was getting the story elements to come all together. Um, so maybe that was the hardest, but I enjoyed that part. That's the puzzle piece nature of storytelling can be quite enjoyable sometimes. And then I guess the hardest part. Um, I know I struggled a lot drawing the environment. I've always loved drawing trees. That's one of the first things I drew as a kid, but they're not easy. And getting a ton of trees to be in an environment, it took a lot of practice for me. Yes. And I think something that I learned a lot of is pacing. There are definitely some moments in the film that I feel went too fast or went too slow. And uh, especially when the trees are the same shade color. Yeah. What was I saying? What I learned, pacing. There were definitely some areas that went too fast and went too slow. And some of that was with the challenge of linking up dialogue to the scenes because of the technology that I have available to me. I have to have the sound, like I can't mess with the timing of the dialogue once I import it into the animation program. So I kind of have to guess, and I can't really change it. But I learned some things from the attempts that I made this time, and now hopefully I can get a flow in my next films that I'm working on. I think I've already made some big improvements in that regard, but definitely want to pay more attention to the rhythm of the story as we see it. And the environment was one of my favorite parts. Yeah, I'm glad you liked the environment. I worked very hard on that. Um, the specific aesthetic. Well, I did one of the things I always do when I start planning the look of a film is I gather a lot of reference. So I did reference a lot of forests, just photographs that I found on Google Images, and practice drawing the woods over and over again from different angles, blah blah blah. And then to get the vibe, I thought a lot. I went through a lot of different ideas. I At one point I know I was thinking of trying to go for kind of like a old timey tapestry, um, like fairy tale medieval look that I don't think came through in the end. Um, and definitely thinking of like dark fairy tale, creepy vibes, you know. Um, and I did experiment with using a lot of like a scribbly mark um, with the line art or the coloring, but that ended up looking way too messy. So like balancing the gritty look that I was trying to go for with the making it clear and easy to look at was a challenge. And I eventually settled on it came down to the color of the line art and some of the experiments I was doing and making it in a lot of places lighter than the colors it was holding. You know, because most of the time you have a really dark line when you're working with line art. Having the lines be lighter gave it a kind of unsettling look that I liked. And that's what I settled on for some of the night scenes. yeah. But visual development is definitely one of my favorite tasks to do when it comes to pre-production. I think, yeah, it takes a lot of reference and experimentation, and it can just be a fun game of experimenting, and then you find something that really gets at what you like about the story you're trying to tell. So, yeah, that was a good question. Thank you, Jai. Yeah. So I went through how I came up with a story idea, um, and talked about the voice acting process. So after I got all the files, all the audio files, I had to go through and choose the best takes. There were some issues with like peaking here and there, and or like the take I wanted just didn't record correctly. So we had a couple times where we needed to do some retakes asynchronously, and I'm very appreciative that the actors, Fi, Annie, Grace, y'all were very cooperative with that, and I'm very grateful for you being patient with me. And then once I had the takes that I wanted, I edited them all together to basically you could hear the story. The visuals weren't there yet, and I broke those into manageable chunks. I broke the story into manageable chunks so that my computer wouldn't crash when I started um, putting the images to them. So I took the these chunks and imported them into my animation program, and started taking the thumbnails of the storyboard I had imagined and matching them up to the moments that we had the audio for. And at that point, I had a watchable storyboard or animatic. And Jai just asked, what did the birds represent, and why did you choose birds specifically? So I think of the birds as like they're able to leave. They're like sort of like a freedom, like they can fly, unlike the trees that are rooted in the ground. And so I chose birds because they can fly. Also because they look cool, crows and spooky forest, So some of it was that there's an inkling of like, yeah, there could be something deep to this, but also just the vibes, the aesthetic. Yeah, so I chose birds because they can fly and they look cool, and so they juxtapose the forest, which is stuck in the ground and has trapped these characters. There's something that can leave, something that's still alive, unlike the other inhabitants. Well, the people are alive. Yeah. Okay. I hope that answers your question. So I was talking about the animatic, right? So once I had the animatic, I think the ending is open to interpretation. I mean, what I didn't have much interest in exploring in this story was whether they get out of the forest so much. It was more about the characters' perspective on their situation. And they end up flipping around. So Earring is sort of already accepted their situation and believes there's no way out of the forest, and Uili refuses to give up that hope. And then by the end, Uili gained a new appreciation for the situation that they're in, and better understands the pessimism. And then Earring is now having to hold on to hope for the sake of her little sister, right? So, it depends on whether you think there is something out there. I mean, where do the birds come from, as Lily pointed out? There could be something out there. Could they get there? We'll see. I don't know. Hopefully. Yeah, I think it's up to interpretation. Yeah. What do you think, Jai? Do you think it could be hopeful, or do you think it's pessimistic? Yeah. Okay, the animatic. So once I had the animatic, that had the timing of everything. So that's what I shared with the composer and the sound mixer. So Paulina and Indo, they got to see that version to start planning out how they're going to approach those things, while I would move on to the backgrounds. Yeah, that sounds about right to me, Jai. I think the pessimistic vibe fits the tone of the film, but I want them to be happy. Do you think that they caused the grandmother's demise or the transformation into a tree by bringing her multiple birds? I don't know if that's the specific cause. I do think that when Uwili kills the bird at the end, it didn't help. Surely, that was probably not what she was supposed to do, but how could she know? Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think they didn't help. That's for sure, I think. Yeah. But that's an interesting thought. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. So I was talking about the animatic, which after that I took the backgrounds that I drew from the animatic and basically used those as sketches for the final backgrounds. So I added the colors and the painting in preparation for the animation process. Yeah, I think the forest is made up of other people like the grandmother. And that's what happened to their parents. So when Earring witnessed that happening to her parents, and when Uwili was a baby, and Uwili witnessing what happened to their grandmother, now has a new understanding of Earring's point of view. That's how I imagined it, at least. Yeah. Yeah. So once I had the backgrounds, I animated on top of that. And I started a new file, which I think maybe I could have saved some time by using the poses that I had already drawn for the animatic, but it worked out. And I started over, and I animated the most important scenes first, and then went through the next important to the least important. And I think that approach helped me maintain a good deal of consistency in the characters and the quality of the animation as I improved, because you always get so much better by the end of a project that by the time you get to the end, all you see is what you could have done differently. But I think that approach worked very well. And once I had the rough animation, I sent that to Paulina and Indo, and they did their thing while I worked on the cleanup, so that I could bring that all together and now we have the film, and I love finally getting to watch it all together because by the time I finish animating and cleaning up the film, I'm kind of tired of it. But Paulina and Indo did such amazing jobs uh, that like it always gets me excited about the project again because the music really elevates the story, and the sound really expands the world, and what's going on, gives more oomph to what's going on. So I love that. Yeah, yeah. So that's essentially how I made the film. Moving forward, I'm trying to find ways to add more flexibility to the timing because I it's kind of impossible to get it right the first time. But the tools I have available don't offer a lot of flexibility in that regard. I'm glad you find it interesting. Yeah. Um, but so that's something that I'm looking to do in my next film, which um, I've made a lot of progress on. And if you'd like to get some sneak peeks into that, I have some behind the scenes stuff over on my Patreon. What's the next tier in terms of tools? Um, so I'm working with a program called Rough Animator, which is a great tool when it comes to the animation. Right now, what I'm struggling mostly with is the sound, like getting the timing of the sound between programs. There's not an easy way to do that. There isn't a way to do that in one program right now that I have. I believe some of the really expensive professional tools probably have some options for that. I I can't afford those. One, two, I don't have the hardware to run those at the moment. So that's a future goal. Although I know there is an animation program that should work on my iPad, which is what I do all my animation on. I know that they say they're gonna have sound tools at some point, like they're working on them, and I hope they come soon because I I think it could work great, and I'm hoping that they have options to kind of move audio around on the timeline because that would really make things easier if I didn't have to have a fixed um, timeline of sound imported into the animation program. Yeah, me too. I think the next film, uh, it's coming together nicely. Yeah, I hope to have some announcements about that. Uh, maybe next month. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah. Uh, so do other. Oh yeah. Okay. Um, that's basically how I made the film. If you have any questions, um, feel free to put them in the chat, and then I should, before I forget, uh, do this giveaway that I promised. Um, yeah. So there will be 3 winners, and I'm plugging all the entries into this random name generator. So here we go. The first winner is Kelsey Turner. Yes. So I'll be contacting you. I should write this down. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, and then next we have Inica. And then last but not least, We have Ital Gardner. All right. Congratulations to the winners of the giveaway. I will. Each of you will be receiving one of the one-of-a-kind uh, jewelry pieces made by my good friend Ashley. You should check out their store. Yeah. Other than that, yeah. Thank you all for coming. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I answered all of your questions. If you have more questions, you can throw them in the comments after this. I'd be happy to answer them there. Yeah, and yeah, thank you all for supporting me in making this film. I could not have done it without without that support. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And then yeah. So before I go, yes, I did the film, did the giveaway, and then yeah, just a reminder that I am making another film, and I'm hoping to be able to have enough funds to uh, pay the composer, which is expense that's coming up. So if you'd like to help me do that, I have limited edition Fear Rules Forest merch, a zine, an art of zine. I should get them and show them to you. They came out amazing. So we have the postcard print, and then the art of zine, which has a ton of behind the scenes artwork, all in color. Those are over on my store. Check it out. Will be helping me make the next film, and then you could also, if you'd like, support me on Patreon, where you can see all the behind the scene work, see all the progress I've been making. I have 2 films that I am working on right now that making a lot of progress. There's a lot of cool art. If you like the visual development stuff, you can see that process, some of the references I'm using, the things I'm thinking about. I think it's really cool, and I love that I'm able to share those things with y'all over on Patreon. But other than that, thank you all for your support. I really hope you enjoyed the film, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion. And have a good afternoon, y'all. Yeah. All right. Bye. Where's my mouse? Okay. Bye. Jeez.